back. Thank you for joining me in this episode. My name's Patrick, and I'm Frack. Frickety Frack, We Do Talk Back is a show where I discuss different aspects of fandom and how they relate to the gospel. We'll be going through an episode of My Hero Academia and connect it to teachings from the Bible. The name of the show comes from my dad, who dubbed my brother and me Frick and Frack since we were kids. So we're going to be going over episode 147 of My Hero Academia, entitled Extras. So this episode, it continues from where the last one left off, with Todoroki having defeated Dabi, and everyone's kind of amazed. Everyone gets the great news. It's all hunky dory. And one of the things that happens in the very beginning part of this episode is that they recognize that Dabi is still alive. They're surprised by all this. They're really impressed and intrigued, and then all of a sudden you see him glowing in his chest, and so I'm sure that will be dealt with in coming up episodes. So that's where everything starts off, and then everyone's getting the good news, and so we get to see a little bit of clips and scenes of the other fights that are happening at the moment. We get to spend a little bit of time with Pinky and Red Riot and their fight defending Gigantomachia, and seeing all of that. And then there's a little tease for upcoming plots. So this is one of the things that makes this episode great, are that they're laying the groundwork for future things that are going to happen, and being like, okay, ooh, if you notice this, something's probably going to be coming up. And so during this fight, which is a great fight, there's small moments, but it's great seeing everyone using their powers and their abilities. But we see Pinky notice that someone starts talking about Midnight's death, and that happened in uh, the Jingu Villa uh, raid, where she is taken out by Mr. Compress, and uh, trying to deal with Gigantomachia, and uh, and then a whole swarm of villains killed her, and nothing's really come of it. But this is where that's going to get kind of played off. We also get to see what has happened to Spinner. Spinner is leading an army of heteromorphs against the hospital. They are trying to free Kurogiri, because here's the thing, and they haven't really touched on this a whole lot of this part of the strategy, is that if they can get Kurogiri and Gigantomachia uh, working for All for One, that will completely change the battle dynamic, because those two are two very powerful individuals that will serve All for One relentlessly. And so Spinner, he's only a heteromorph, so he doesn't actually have any powers. And All for One helps him grow. Like, he gives him a quirk of some kind that increases his size and his strength, and he's like the size of a Hulk now. And so they are swarming that hospital, and Anima and Tentacle are two of the heroes and Present Mike. I forgot Present Mike is there too. And those three are three of the people that are present at the hospital. And so that will, they're teasing that coming battle. And so this is just one of those great episodes that these little scenes, they're giving you these touching moments that are really deep and that are going to get a big payoff in coming episodes. And so, but the main central focus of this fight is the start of the fight of All for One, Endeavor, and Hawks. Now remember, in the hero ranking system, Endeavor is the number one hero in Japan, and Hawks is number two. Endeavor is back to full strength from, after, everything that's happened. He's back up to full strength for the most part. Uh, but Hawks is not. Hawks was severely injured by Dabi, and so he's getting back to his strength, but He's not what he was. And so this is a great action sequence and fight where we're seeing all these crazy quirks that All For One has in his body. And one of the things that they point out is that they point out All For One's weakness is his health, his helmet, which is basically a life support system for him because his body's just been so damaged by All Might that for him to be able to continue, he has to have it. Because they learned this because he kept his from Stain, All For One had to keep a traveling um, life support system with him even when he left Tartarus. So that's just how that's one of the interesting things with All For One is that that's how damaged he is that he needs life support to function. And so they're aiming for the helmet. And during all this great action, these great fight scenes between Hawks and Endeavor against All For One, Endeavor is, or All For One is messing with Endeavor. Hawks is like, "Don't do it," and so it's just these great action sequences. Like this is, I know I kind of talked about in the last episode where I was kind of hoping for more from Dabi and Todoroki, but this is where it really delivered. This is the kind of fight sequences that I really enjoy. And so like I said, this pays off really well. And so we're going to continue talking about this fight because, like I said, it's the central focus of it. But there's this also ties in to the biblical theme for this episode. It's Philippians chapter 2, verse 3 through 4. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others. So I chose this verse because the focus of this fight is, they're pointing this out, is how prideful All For One is. Now he knows he has all of these trump cards, especially ones that cause emotional damage, that he can do to the heroes. He can do it on a whim. And so he's needling at them, and it's just crazy when you're watching this fight. How he's like, all right, I'm good. It's like, I'm fine. I could take these two. I mean, who cares? Endeavor might be number one, but one of the things I do love is All For One points out to Hawks, he's like, you're not really number two anymore. He basically calls him a shell of who he was. And so and Hawks is a cool customer, so he's fine with, um, whatever All For One throws his way. Like he is just, Hawks is just a not emotionally can be harmed person in that way. But he does get Endeavor. And so during this moment when Endeavor is when All For One plays his trump card against Endeavor, Endeavor gets severely hurt, and Hawks is this close to death, and all of a sudden Jiro and Tsukuyomi appear and save him. And All For One is mad about this. He's like, ugh. He's like, you bugs think you can defeat the Demon Lord? I mean, now, All For One, he's pretty bad when it comes to, villains in the grand scheme of things. Because, uh, he is a master manipulator and planner. And so he has, uh, and so his pride, even though he's a schemer, he's a master planner, he doesn't view anyone that, unless he thinks has value, he doesn't value them at all. Like he just completely ignores them. You think about this, he had, um, against two of the most powerful heroes, two of the best heroes, he had cards to play against them when he fought them. And when he fought All Might in Kamino, he revealed to All Might that Shigaraki is the grandson of his mentor. And so that messed with All Might. And then All For One reveals that, you know, I'm the one who made Toya disappear. You went looking for his body. You couldn't find him because I already took him, because I knew I needed him to get to you. And so any of the other students, basically, that aren't either Midoriya, Bakugo, or Todoroki, are really beneath All for One's notice. And Bakugo's really only on his radar because Shigaraki thought that Bakugo could be turned and be turned into a villain. So I think that's the only reason why All for One even knows who Bakugo is. And so I've been explaining all of this, what's going on in this fight, and that when Tsukuyomi and Jiro arrive in the fight, this is why the title of the episode is called Extras, is because that's what All for One refers to these two students as, because they're beneath his notice, because they aren't the people that he's deemed worthy, so he doesn't care. And I've been saying all this because there are many times in our own lives when we don't think that we have value. And even the world might not say, it's like, well, you don't really bring that much to the table. But you might be someone that the world does recognize, that someone who brings value. But either way, it shouldn't be used, because what the world say provides value doesn't mean that you don't have value. And so I saw in an interview recent of by Denzel Washington, about, they asked him, like, what was your most difficult job that you've ever had? And he said, I had two. I worked as a garbage man, and I worked in the post office. He'd done both jobs, and he said they were great jobs because he worked hard, and he said it was like, and but he said it was like, I'm an actor, but I've made movies, I've done TV. He's done all these wonderful things, and Denzel Washington's an incredible actor. But he says, like, that work that these people that I did as a garbage man or in the post office means so much more, because being able to do a movie is a privilege. It's a gift. It's a wonderful opportunity. But he's expressing how he values uh, his time working as a garbage man and working in the post office. And so I want to encourage you that you might be feeling today like that you don't have value. I want to completely disregard that thought. Now, I don't want to negate your feelings, because those feelings can be harmful. But I want you to know that when we look to what Paul wrote to the Philippians, he said, "Don't do anything out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others." So we have to think about how, when we think of others, we got to give them value. And you might be in a time when you might be thinking, well, I don't have any value. Christ died for you. That shows that you have value. And so I want to encourage you to know that you have this value, and how much Christ loves you. That and he didn't want anything from you, because he wants to be in a relationship with you to help you grow, to be a better version of you, but not even the better version that you think you're going to be, but the version that Christ thinks. Think about this, the infinite value that Christ saw in you, that he died for you. And so that's who he wants you to be. He wants you to be that person of infinite value that he saw. So you might not be in a place where you think that you have value or that you're really adding anything, but Christ said, no, I know you have value. And he is going to say, I died for this so that you can know me and know the Father and be a version that is so much better than who you think you are. He's going to help you grow. He's going to help you be the person who you could only even imagine, and even beyond that. And so I want to encourage you that with other people too, that Christ sees the value in them as well. So just that same value that you have, other people have, even if you don't think that they really provide anything, or they might be someone that you don't get along with, or you struggle with, or disagree with. That's okay because Christ views them as valuable. Now, All for One doesn't view people as with value. He doesn't value anyone. He only thinks about, okay, how can I move this pawn? He views everyone as a pawn. So I want to encourage you today to value life and value people because Christ valued your life and values it today. And he values each one of you. So let's go and do the same. Amen. So, how am I going to rate this episode? This episode is great. As I shared, last episode, the action left me wanting. This one delivered. It was great. I loved all of the moments, the teasings of, okay, this is what a future plot line is going to be looking like. This is a future plot line that's going to be dealt with. It was great. So this episode is a perfect 5. Great episode. This is a must-watch episode for My Hero Academia fans, and it is just great. If you are a superhero fan too, this is a great episode to watch. All right, so anyone with questions for me about the biblical lessons that I talked about in this episode, or any other discussion ranging from anime, comics, or just anything in general, feel free to email me at frickityfracktalkback@gmail.com, or reach out to me on Twitter at frickityf or at frickityfrack on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. So please rate, review, and subscribe. Remember that I love you. Most importantly, God loves you. And go beyond plus ultra.